and welcome back to Shoogly Shed Motors, Yamaha XV750, Tom Hurley's Dune Scrambler build, continuing. Last episode we got the headlight and the fender mounted up and the steering stops done on the headstock. What I want to do now is finish off my work on the foot pegs from the last episode we did on them. So I was waiting on componentry for the foot controls. So obviously we mounted the kind of bear trap foot pegs up, but then now I need to actually make the foot controls, i.e. the brake pedal and the gear shifter, all work with that position. So the brake pedal should be fairly straightforward, but we are going to make one from scratch. And the gear shifter will involve a linkage of some sort, so there will be a little bit more jiggery pokery involved in that, but I'm sure it'll be manageable. Probably going to start with the brake shifter. I'll show you the brake lever, I should say. I'll show you some of the parts that we've got to work with and how we're going to go about doing this. Right, so this is the original gear shifter for the XV750. I think I did mention it in the last episode on the foot pegs, but we need to basically flip this round, and the problem with that would be that it would make the gear shifts 1 up and 4 down as opposed to 1 down and 4 up. And although that is manageable, it's not ideal, and there is a solution to that we make a linkage. So this is basically going to get cut off roughly here. We're going to create a little eyelet mount on it. That will go onto the shifter rod, which is on the engine, and then to that we'll attach this gear linkage rod, sort of like that, and then on this end there will be this guy, like that, and effectively that will operate the gear shift like that. So this one, obviously I've already cut off the top portion of it and flattened it off. It did have a standard sort of spigot like that for a regular gear shift, but we're not using this. We're going to go for more of a kind of motocross enduro style flick up one. And to tie in with that, we've got this, which is for the brake pedal. This matches obviously the foot pegs that we've gone for, but it is also a little bit more of that style for a cross off-road bike. This, obviously I could just cut the old brake pedal and mount this, but because of this sort of flat bar nature, I'd like to remake the brake pedal to match, because it's currently one of those kind of round bars, so it'd be nice to make that a bit neater and a bit more of attention to detail. So what I'm going to do is get the brake pedal off the bike, cut it up a little bit, use this as a reference for this sort of shape and style, and then fabricate that first, and then drill some holes and mount this. Once that's done, I'll move on to the gear shifter. So brake pedal, as I was saying, it's that kind of rounded bar, very 80s. So it doesn't really match the slightly more modern gear shift bar that we've gone for. So I'm probably going to just cut this off at the mount point and then fabricate a bar from some flat bar, and then yeah, basically fix that to it as well. So it should be fairly straightforward enough, but it's all about getting the angles right. Obviously that kick out needs to be correct to clear the engine case, but yeah, all manageable. So let's get on with it. Okay, so we've got the basic shape now. What I need to do is I need to add an extra layer of thickness to the top part, because where the sort of foot control gets screwed to just needs to be thicker in order for me to drill and tap holes for this. So what I'm going to do is, with a spare piece of metal that I've cut off there, is weld that nice and strong along all the edges, dress it down so it looks like part of the original metal, give me a nice thickness there, which will be plenty to drill and tap for the actual foot plate itself. So that's what we do now. Get the welder up, stick these together. Right, yesterday's fabrication session got a little cut short. We were actually in the middle of Storm Ewan, something like that, and we lost power. So I had no power to the shed for the majority of yesterday afternoon, which kind of halted things. This morning though, I got up early and I've just finished the welding for that foot pedal and neatened it off a little bit, so it looks a little bit more like it's meant to be there. But yeah, that's pretty much that side done. Foot pedal works nicely. It's still adjustable height wise. You just take it off the spline and move it a couple of splines depending on where you want it to be. So I've just put it on there for the time being because like I say, we're not sure what height you'll want it until we actually get sat on the bike with a saddle and all these things. So the other side obviously is the gear linkage. So it might be a little bit more complicated, but hopefully still manageable. So let's get cracked into that today. Alright then, so gear shifter is going to sit kind of down here somewhere. Yeah, probably about there. That will allow it to be, up and down. This side isn't going to be a spline, this is just going to be a pivot. So we're going to make up a pivot on the lathe that this will go onto, that we can then drill a hole in the foot plate, and then that will obviously be adjustable just depending on the length of the actuator rod, which we have here. Yeah, It's not very complicated, to be honest, this one. But effectively, the spline side, this side here on the engine, I'm just going to cut off the old gear shifter, which has the corresponding splines on there. So roughly like that. So when you operate this linkage, you can change the gear the right way round. So 1 down and 4 up. Right, by threading this M14 nut onto this cut off M14 bolt, I can set my thread depth, which I want to be about 15 mil, which is about there. And that gives me a nice flat surface, so when I drill and tap a hole into the foot plate, that can basically be screwed into it and tightened down with a wee half turn, and that will leave me with the pivot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some weld along this. I'm going to clean this up and get all the zinc coating off it. It's just a high tensile bolt. Get all the zinc coating off it, weld around this seam, and if we spin it in the lathe, we can basically make this nut part of this sleeve, shaft, sorry. And then we turn that down to the right diameter for this to slide over smoothly. And then we cut a circlip groove with space for a spacer, and that's what will keep that on the shaft. So yeah, it's a very simple design, but hopefully this will keep it as little complications as possible. Saves me having to cut a thread onto a shaft, and it gives me that hexagonal nut that I can use to obviously tighten the shaft onto the foot plate. Alright, I've cleaned it up of the zinc coating where I want to weld it, and on the nut. It's a nylock nut and I don't want the nylon, so easy solution, just to melt it out. I'm sure I could have spent ages with a pick tool and got all that out, but melting it seemed like a more fun option. Right, so now that we have the pivot fixed to the foot plate, the next thing is to put the spline shaft fixing point on. Just saw me cut that old brake lever off. Yeah, this is what I'm going to use because it's obviously got the splines on it and it's got the hole with the threaded portion which clamps it onto the splines. So very similar to what we did with the brake pedal. Just going to make another little attachment, position it, weld it onto this, clean it all up, make it look like it was like that from the start. Just got a little bit of 6mm steel to cut, drill a hole in it, weld it on, fix it to the bike, link up the link bar, and that should be job done. Oh, not again. Another bloody power cut. It's not even windy anymore. Oh. And the Lord said, let there be light. Right, so that obviously works. The one thing obviously missing is the actual shifter toe. So basically this needs to be mounted onto there, and I put it somewhere, but there's a spring that basically keeps that spring loaded. So probably have to weld some stuff onto this to widen it. Then I can drill an M6 hole down through it, which will basically go through the whole thing, and then slide a spring into it as well. So a little bit of work needed, but I'm sure we can do it. The springs are wrong way around. Bollocks. So it's sprung, That's the wrong way. Ah, okay. Okay, spring variation number lots. I think I've got it now. You wouldn't believe how much work that took. I literally have a whole pile of springs that are now going in the bin. Anyway, should put it back on the bike. It's fully adjustable. You can raise and lower it for whatever you prefer. Well, with that, that's the foot controls finished. Obviously we've got the brake lever on the other side and gear shifter on this side. Quite a lot of complicated work goes into that kind of thing. It's not really stuff that you would even notice if you didn't know, but everything from, you know, making that spring work to machining that pivot, yeah, it's a lot of work, but we're ticking off some really major jobs here, and the bike is progressing massively. Yeah, a couple of big jobs obviously is the subframe, figuring out what we're doing with that, and then also rear hugger that I want to make, mount the tank. Yeah, there's still stuff to do. Side panels. Yeah, we're getting there though. It's nice to see some progress and tick off some complicated jobs like that. I'm quite excited to try and get into the kind of bodywork, kind of metal shaping aspect of this build with the side panels and hugger and things like that, because I've been investing recently in some body sort of metal shaping tools, which I'll cover in those episodes, but I'm quite excited to try my hand at a few different techniques and see what results I can come up with. Anyway, as usual, please do give me a like, leave me a comment, and make sure you subscribe to the Shoogly Shed channel. I appreciate all the support, and I'll hopefully see you next time. Take care, and goodbye.